Hello, everybody. Welcome to my podcast. I want to talk about listening and hearing. And the reason I want to do this is most people hear, but they don't listen. And I think if you're listening to this, you probably understand what I mean. Therefore, it's important that we listen to the other person when they're talking to us and actually absorb what they're saying. And that goes for all relationships, whether it's with your partner, your family, your kids, your friends. By listening, we're actually absorbing it in and try not to interrupt. I would say that would be one of the habits that I had to try and do. I tend to interrupt because my mind's going fast and I want to say something. So try not to interrupt, let them finish. There's a little saying and it goes, whoever starts the sentence gets to end the sentence. And I used to keep that in mind when I was training myself to be a better listener. You will have people who you talk to, and even though they hear you, and if you ask them, they'll even tell you about what you just said, you know that they weren't really listening to you. And there'll be other signs they're not listening. They'll be looking out the window, be distracted, they'll be checking their phone, they'll be actually looking at the computer, pressing some buttons on the computer. So you know they're not really listening. And I think this is really infuriating for people and starts to set up like a distrust in the relationship, like I'm talking to you and you're not listening to me. A lot of people scream that you're not listening to me. And you can always tell when people aren't listening to one another because the voices get higher. We have got this crazy thing where we think if we speak louder, it will get through. And I just think if you speak too loud, it gets blocked out. The other person blocks you. I want you to try and listen better. It means actively listen when they're talking to you, not try and think about what you're going to say next. Actually listen to what they're talking to you about and then don't react. Try and just respond to it. It's very important. This is going to improve all your relationships. And saying things like, yeah, I can understand what you're saying. I heard what you said. Yeah, I could go away and have a look at that. They all mean that you're part of that little sentence, all those sentences they gave you about what was going on. Then you're attaching to it and you're part of it. It's important to be part of the act of listening, so you have to respond in some way. If you're not really listening properly, you'll only get also parts of the conversation. You won't get all the conversation, so you have bits and pieces, and you won't be able to really respond properly because you haven't been listening for some of the parts. And you'll know that because your head will be thinking about what you're going to make for dinner or form. Have I done that form that I had to do? It'll be all random things that come into your mind. You need to push those out. I think children particularly need to be listened to and heard because they often will be screaming that you're not listening to me. And a lot of the times they are. And I think that's the other thing. If you're with people and they're telling you you're not listening, maybe it's because you're not listening. You're only hearing. I had this really great T-shirt my husband had bought and it said, my wife says I'm not listening, or something like that. And I always thought it was really funny because that's sort of how you can feel when the person's not really present. Often these people are distracted and they can often be overthinkers too. Therefore, when you're trying to talk to them, they're actually trying to think of two things at the same time. It's important for the relationship because this is the communication. And without clear and good communication, things get also misconstrued and you don't understand it, or you take the wrong way because you haven't actually listened properly, and or the person hasn't been clear in what they're saying. And that's another thing that you can take responsibility if you're in a relationship by saying, I don't think I communicated that very well, or I don't think I was very clear. I understand you can't understand what I said because I don't think I said it properly. Take responsibility for what you're like as a communicator, because maybe you're a bit rubbish sometimes and you need to sort of not blame the other person for not listening. You need to take your part that you're not communicating properly. I always found the most important and beneficial thing was to say a paraphrase what they said. So they'd say something to me and I would say back, so you mean blah, 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 and then they'd say yes or no. Because that meant that I was telling them what they were trying to say and verifying with them on that. And that's really powerful, especially on big stuff. Because on big stuff, you can really get in a mess. I remember I sort of wanted my partner to spend more quality time with me, and I talked to him about that. And I said, well, what do you hear that I said? And he said that you want to spend time with me, or you want to be with me all the time, you want to spend time with me all the time. Like, no, I want to spend quality time that when you're there, you're actually present. But he would have got completely the wrong idea, like I wanted to be with him 24/7, which was unrealistic and pretty unhealthy as well. Always ask them what they said. Is it this, that what you said? Is this what you mean? Is this what the problem is? Ask them back. And you'll get very clear then. It'll be really, really clear, and it will stop any of those problems in between. Try and be a better listener. I've been working at it for years, because I think it's something I could improve. And it's really interesting if you do actually really listen to someone. I've had it on the phone sometimes. I'm listening to them, and then it'll go quiet, and they go, "Wendy, are you still there?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I've just been listening to you," because I've been intent on taking the information in, and processing it. And they were hearing the processing, I suppose, which was my brain clicking away there. You'll find it also smooths everything and stops so many fights, because a lot of fights are to do with misunderstanding or miscommunication. People just put it through their own filter and it comes out quite different to what the other person intended. There's not clarity, and it's actually not the truth. And that's the other thing, you can get far away from the truth if you don't listen properly or you don't communicate properly. Our relationships are our medicine for ourselves, and when they're working, it's good medicine, and when they're not, it's kind of like bad medicine. Therefore, you want to make your relationships better. You want them to be happier. You want them to be more harmonious. You want each person to have equal investment in their input in the relationship and then their response. And that's why I think the listening is so important for your relationship and to improve it. Try and improve it. I'm doing it all the time, and I have improved to a degree. I found that sentence one was good for me, like wait until they get to the end of the sentence. And I think you'll find too, if you were coming out of a childhood where no one listened to you or you never heard, you might find that that's why you perhaps interrupt or want to say something now, because you were never heard before. Now you have an opportunity of being heard. So there could be some of your stuff there. That's how I see it. Your week should be a good listening week. You should be listening to everybody and responding and asking them back, is that what you meant? And I think you're going to find things really, really improve. And it's like a closeness. It creates like an emotional intimacy between you and the other person, because you're really there for them. People keep saying, I'm here for you, but a lot of the times they're not there for you. They're on the phone or in their own thoughts or watching TV or not really concentrating. So try and be there for everyone. And you can talk to your partner and your kids and your family and your friends about this, because some people are actually better at this than other people. They just seem to really be present, and that's what it is. It's like not being in the past thinking about yesterday, and it's also not being in tomorrow, what you have to do, or later today. It's like almost mindful listening, I could call it. So try and do some mindful listening. So I hope all goes well this week and you do some great listening. Sending you lots of love and lots of light.